John Leroy, Apparel Redefined. How are you, dude?
I'm doing good, Kurt. How are you?
Oh my goodness gracious. If I was any better, John, you might have to call 911. Like this is just so exciting. Dude, where do you find all these amazing guests? I don't know how you pull this off.
Lucky, man. Real lucky. And we got a
Man,
great host.
I don't know. So Cassie Green is in the house. Cassie, how are you?
I am doing great. I'm not sure I could describe it any better than how you did. Yeah, any better than you'd have to call 911.
We have to call that right. It could be an emergency phone call. We'll get one to your house, my house, like whatever needs to happen. So, Cassie, what an honor, what a privilege to have you. Do us a favor, tell us a little background on yourself. What's going on in your world?
Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I am the one who's honored here to be a part of your show, and such a good show, by the way. Yeah, a little bit about my background. I have been in the printing industry as a journalist since, geez, I'm gonna say this, I'm gonna make myself really upset. Since like 2012, I've been a journalist, specifically in the printing industry. Came over to Printing United Alliance in 2021 to help launch our brand, Apparelist, which is the Alliance's media brand that supports apparel decorators. So was really brought on to engage the community, really, come as a support system for the community and be a voice, a connector, and help people really run their businesses better. Lots of creative people in this industry who just need a little business help. So that's what we're here to do.
Awesome. And so we want everybody to connect with you on LinkedIn, and you have a fascinating background. So just so what inspired you to become a journalist? Like let's start there.
Oh man, I have known I wanted to be a journalist since I was a freshman in high school. I don't know why I landed on that. I knew I wanted to write. I knew I wanted to be in sort of a reporting capacity. So I was like, hey, journalist sounds great, right? Of course, as a high school freshman, you don't really understand what you want or what any of that means. And so, as I went through the rest of my high school career, went through my college career, what I really discovered is that I loved being an editor. And so, I loved taking an article, making it beautiful, making it grammatically correct, turning it into this really beautiful layout that people could have an experience with while they were still reading. So that sort of blossomed into knowing, hey, I'll start as a journalist and then become an editor. That's my goal. That's kind of a natural progression in the journalism world. Never in a million years thought I would land in business to business publication or even the printing industry for that matter. But I feel like everybody comes into this industry sort of by accident anyway. So maybe that's good. Maybe that's a good thing. And, here we are. I caught a few lucky breaks, just worked really hard and tried to just exercise my passion as a writer and as a communicator to sort of build my career.
Okay, that is absolutely fantastic. I always admire somebody that wants to get into journalism. Like it's just so daunting to just think like, there's so many articles out there. I'm like, who writes all these things, right? So it's people that have a passion like yourself. Fill in the blanks. So we're gonna dive into the apparelist, but you've piqued my curiosity with content director at well, I want to talk about the Printing United Alliance. Just fill in that gap, and then we're gonna dive into apparelist.
Yeah, so Printing United Alliance is actually like a nonprofit association where people can become members and get various support resources. So a lot of our members are, small business printers, entrepreneurs, people who own their own printing shops, but often need support in like the human resources department, or they need help with legal things, or they need help dealing with OSHA, or they need access to learning and certifications. So think of like the wide format industry. You got a lot of people who are doing vehicle wraps, right? They have to often get these very specific certifications that their customers look for and say, hey, look, I'm really good at vehicle wrapping. I understand what I'm doing. I guarantee your product's good. Well, we offer things like that. So we offer things like iLearning Plus. It even supports apparel, decorators, obviously. There's lots of like screen printing courses, direct to film, which is all the rage. We have a course on that and things like that. And it also is set up to be a community system. So a lot of the phone calls that I field specifically for Apparelist is, hey, can you help me find a contract decorator in this state that can handle this specific job. Because we have access to so many different members and so many different buckets and resources, and we have a lot of these conversations with people on a day-to-day basis, we often know how to connect people to who they need in the community, which I think is it's probably one of the most valuable things the Alliance offers. And then of course we have Printing United Expo, which happens every year. It's a huge show. People love it. Of course I'm biased, right? But it's a good show. It's if you've never been to it, Printing United Expo is a really good show. You can see just about everything in the printing industry there.
It is really, it is really cool. I mean, that was your first year was that in Georgia, Atlanta?
Yeah, we had one in Atlanta, not in 2024, but 2023, and then we're actually going back to Atlanta a couple years from now. So,
yep. Yeah, from our perspective, like the SGIA like prior, and then you had COVID and there was nothing, and then kind of like coming out of that, it was like what's going to happen. So like bringing it all together under one roof, number one, is really cool. And then from an apparel side, you get to see all this stuff that's been around for a lot longer, and like how we're just getting into automation on our side, and it's like you go on the other side of the hall and it's like, oh my god, it's like every one of those machines is bigger than probably a lot of people's shops in our industry. It's wild. And just to see that and be exposed to that and go talk to people on that side that are now starting to bring that technology into the apparel space is really cool. Yeah, Printing United is a fantastic event. Your team does a great job, and bringing that together to create that synergy between the print and the apparel side is really cool. You guys do a great job.
Oh, thank you. That means a lot. Thank you. For the record, my mind is also completely blown every time I see some of those commercial printers. I'm like, this is insanity.
I feel bad for the guys that come and set that up. It's like
weeks in advance
for 3 days, and then it's over. And yeah,
I know.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, so let's slide in here, Cassie. So we're talking about as a matter of fact, you're flashing on your shirt there. We've got the Apparelist, and I'm going to be pulling up your website in a minute because you are doing some amazing, incredible work. Share with folks, what is Apparelist? How are you making the world a better place? What's going on there?
Well, first of all, I do hope we're making the world a better place, right? So you'll see when you visit the Apparelist website, our mission statement, our tagline, whatever you want to call it, is connecting the decorated apparel community. We want to make sure that first and foremost, we are here to support apparel decorators, whether that's through education, whether that's through offering things like white papers and webinars and resources where they can learn more. As I was kind of alluding to earlier, a lot of what we do is connect people to others who can help them, fill a gap or meet a need that they don't necessarily, can't necessarily do in-house. And so, ultimately, my personal mission with the Apparelist brand is how can we help? How can we support you as an apparel decorator? What are the challenges that this industry is facing in current times that we can then turn around and say, hey, look, we know that this is a challenge. We know that this is something you're facing daily, weekly, whatever. Here's how you can address that challenge. So I hate to use this example, but I'm going to. The tariff thing, right? We've got tariff whiplash right now. It's fine. It is what it is. However, much as we may want to stick our heads in the sand about that, we have to address it because it is impacting the vast majority of people in the apparel decorating space. And some of them are ignoring it. Some of them don't know how to handle it. Some of them are losing, massive amounts of work. Some of them are gaining work. Some of them are even benefiting from this. And that's fine. Regardless of where you stand on it, our job is to come to the table with resources that will help and help explain, help shed light on it, offer ways that, your shop can use this as an opportunity to maybe explore something different. And so that's really at the end of the day what we're here to do. We're here to make sure that apparel decorators can succeed on the business side of things.
Well, I absolutely love that. And we're gonna geek out about some business strategy because I'm gonna pull up your website next. And one of the taglines that we'd love to use is, because so many people, they're so passionate about, their product, their solution, or whatever the trade is. But like you said, we want to bring in like that business acumen. And what I really admire what you guys are doing at Perilous is like you're just fierce unapologetic educators. And like that's like speaking our love language, John, right? And so what a little tagline you get a kick out of this, Cassie, is we love to share with our entrepreneur friends. How do you out teach the competition? How do you out teach? So instead of outspending and like, hey, let's do all the Google ad, let's do all the things, right? And what I just really love, like, I've written down, podcasts, webinars, white papers, educate, educate. Let's go there. Let's pull up your website and let's take a little tour. Just so for folks that are landing on your website for the first time, now, hey, do we recognize this wonderful person here? Who's that?
Oh man, full transparency, when I became like a journalist, I never imagined I would be like a video
Yeah.
journalist, by the way.
Well, like when you're in college, like from when you're in college to what you end up with, and my college was 100 years ago, so it's like you take a winding path. Is that what you're saying, Cassie?
Yeah, you do. You have to evolve, right? So
You have
yeah,
to
so
evolve.
if you start kind of at the top, that's what I was alluding to. Like that's our video newsletter
Mhm.
piece of content. We put it out weekly on Wednesdays, and I basically do like a very quick 2-minute video breakdown of what I feel are the top headlines that decorators should be paying attention to. What's the big industry news? I also share a couple really important, new, fresh pieces of content that I want to make sure our readers don't miss. So that's kind of what exists in that top area. Of course, you can see there we've got plenty of topic drop downs, resources. That's what I was talking about with like the white papers that we do. So like the direct to film printing 101. Obviously, everybody wants to know about direct to film printing right now. That's a white paper resource, and it's beyond an article. So building one of those things takes quite a bit of time. We often include an article, but we put like an equipment manufacturer list. We put sidebars that will outline other resources, maybe some YouTube videos that we have vetted and we know are good for people to learn from. We often provide contact information for people that's really special, so that they can directly contact people if they have questions. Like, hey, here's someone who's an expert who can help you. So those are huge for us. Of course, the podcast. I love the podcast. It was sort of just accidentally came to be, but again, just like everything in this industry, it happens for a reason. We have a lot of topics about, high level business stuff. And what I mean by that is apparel decorators are so creative and they're so good at building these amazing designs. They make these beautiful works of art, right? They know how to screen print and they know how to do it well. They know how to run an embroidery machine and they know how to do it well. They know how to manipulate that equipment and turn it into something magical. A lot of times, what decorators may not understand is how to run your business. So, like I was talking about earlier, what happens when OSHA shows up and you unknowingly have removed a safety guard on your automatic screen press? Probably going to get fined, and it's not going to be a small fine. What do you do? So we have a lot of stuff on that. We have a lot of things on like, the EPA will ban certain things that are in the inks that our readers print with. Okay, what do you need to know about that ban? What are the important dates to pay attention to? Things like that. We also talk a lot about, DEI topics. So what's it like being a minority owned business in this industry and how can we do better? So, those are really things that we try to look at is how do we run a better business? How do we be successful as an industry?
Yeah, I love this, and this is so critical for those small entrepreneurs. When you're John, when you're as an entrepreneur, you're minimal staff. You're throwing on multiple hats all day. You're trying to your own HR department, your own marketing department, and then like you said, Cassie, like, oh my goodness, I got to figure, I got to know. Oh, I've got to be an OSHA expert on top of all this. So, John, what are your thoughts as far as like what they're doing here with this podcast?
It's great. I mean, I was in June, or I was in, how was I? I think San Antonio in June, and I saw one of the notices come out for the OSHA podcast. And we had a booth at the Sports Inc. trade show. And I'm like, I'm not going to be able to listen to this, but I had 3 or 4 people at the office listen. And it was really insightful and really impactful. And there was a lot of actionable things that we did after that for our own shop floor, tying in with our own our payroll system, Paylocity, that has all the OSHA trainings to get our people on the floor OSHA certified. If God forbid anything happened, we have those bases covered. So it was just these things that you don't think about because so much of like what we do Kurt, you know this too, being in manufacturing, most of the business that are started in our space in the apparel side are owner operator, right? And you're doing the printing, you're doing the embroidery, you're doing the DTG, whatever it is. However, your business grows or evolves, usually you're that person that's doing it all. And 15 hats is tough to wear, 20 hats. But as you continue to succeed and grow your business and take some of those hats off and people do other things, you still don't know what you don't know. And so much of our industry, is small business, and to go hire, $185,000 employee that's an HR specialist probably isn't realistic for the vast majority of our industry. Um, but we're still kind of looped into manufacturing, right? Which comes with a lot of OSHA problems or OSHA awareness or exposure, workman's comp exposure, other insurance exposure. Just, when we're like, hey, we don't make steel beams, but our workman's comp, there isn't a code for our specific screen printing decoration. There is for embroidery, but not for screen printing, and you kind of get lumped in there. So you have to do stuff to mitigate risk. So it's amazing what you guys are doing, because there isn't that resource. There is no trade. There is no trade school for screen printing, embroidery, and although everyone wears our product or is exposed to a screen print or embroidered piece of apparel at some point in their lives, it's not treated the same way that other trades are treated that are just as essential and valuable. So one thing I say is, like, one of my main goals in life is to bring some consistency and professionalism and spotlight to our industry, because when everyone shut down, people are still wearing clothes, and you had to have a focus on your brand to survive. And then take away the office setting. How do you get people to show off whatever Fortune 500 company that they're wearing is? They're going to wear a polo, they're going to wear a quarter zip, and you just had this mass rush to get people in a brand. And what does that brand convey? Well, behind all of that are people that are actually still doing the work. And your group at Apparelist and Printing United really does a great job supporting us, kind of at the ground level. So again, hats off to you.
What do you think of that, Cassie?
Wow. I like, thank you, first of
Yeah,
all, because that's like, it's incredibly good to hear that the things we're doing are resonating in this industry in a helpful, actionable way, right? It's Kurt, you mentioned this. It's one thing to create content and to put it out there. It's a whole other thing to have that content resonate and for
Yeah.
people to find it helpful.
Yeah.
So I think thank you for the validation. I mean, I'm glad we're going in the right direction. We're also one of those brands who knows that we need to evolve and learn. So if ever there is something that we're not covering, I should really hope that people would come to us and be like, yeah, like, you guys need to talk about this. You need to cover this. We need to dive into this. And anytime there's feedback or insight or additional things we could be covering, I mean, I'm an open book. I want to hear about it. And so that's great to hear, John. 15 hats. Yeah, I've heard the 15 hats. I've heard 20 hats. See, y'all do a lot on a regular basis.
yeah, yeah. It's I'm not 15 hats anymore, but for a while it was. Yeah.
Yeah, he had to get rid of a few, but and he has a wonderful team to support him. But I love what you're doing here, Cassie. Cybersecurity. I just had a wonderful, not well, I guess wonderful and cybersecurity shouldn't be in the same sentence. But this is like for small entrepreneurs. I was interviewing a couple of cyber experts the other day, and we all want to have like the ostrich in the sand type thing, like a head in the sand. And so you guys are hitting these tough topics down here. I see you're covering, print on demand basics, dissecting it. And so just, again, kudos to you to like really understanding your audience. And there's a page in a playbook right here that any entrepreneur could take. It really doesn't cost much to like put out this content, if you will. And it takes time, it takes energy. So I want to diminish or discount that. But Cassie, I just love what you're doing because like you're speaking to your ideal customers. You're meeting them where they're at, using that cliche. Understanding their challenges, their pain points, what frustrations do they have, and like, hey, we're in this together. Let's rising tides all lifts all ships. And so I love what you're doing here. Let's slide over to you have a wonderful event. I think you mentioned it before, but I'm going to pull it up here. What's going on with this big event you have coming up in June?
The Apparel Decoration Summit. Okay, so I am particularly proud of this event. Our team is particularly proud of this event. So what the Apparel Decoration Summit is it's an invitation only hosted buyer event. And what that means is we specifically designed this to be a small event, very intimate, very focused on networking, very focused on connecting with the right people in the industry. And so when we open up this invitation only, what that means is we are qualifying people to be there. So we put people through 3 levels of forms and applications and information that they need to provide to us in order to attend this event. We ask all of the deep hitting questions like, what is your shop's revenue? How much are you going to spend on equipment in the next 6 months, in the next 12 months, in the next 2 years? How many employees do you have? What percentage of your business is allotted to screen printing versus embroidery versus heat transfer, graphics and things like that. And we ask all of those questions because as a hosted buyer event, it's up to us to bring in these qualified decorators, these qualified attendees to connect with the sponsors and frankly be sold to. Our sponsors want to sell to these shops knowing that it's pretty much a sure sale if they provide the kind of product they want. So say, for example, John is out there looking for a new automatic screen press. He's also needing a reclaim system, the whole 9 yards, right? We bring someone like John in to sit with our sponsors like Rock or like Easy Way Systems so that he can talk to not just a salesperson, but often the president of that company. So that when John makes the purchase and something, heaven forbid, go wrong, he has this person's cell phone number. He's now not just connecting with a customer service representative, not that that's a bad thing, but John wants that direct line to someone who will help him immediately. And that's the point of this. And that's why we bring in higher level shops. We do have, a bottom number that we accept people in. You do have to be in the buying cycle, a whole slew of things. But it's not just a sales event per se, it's also an education event. So our presentations are on things like our State of the Decorated Apparel Industry survey. So we have our chief economist come in and break down all the data points of the survey and why that matters for apparel decorators and for the shops and educates them on how to use the data. Because it's one thing to have the data, but you got to understand how to use it and apply it to your shop. So, it's education, things like that. We are bringing in Gary Jones, who's our VP of Environmental Health and Safety Affairs, and he's going to talk about OSHA because, like John was just saying, when you're wearing 15 different hats, you don't realize that you have to be the person to make sure the MSDS sheets are available for people, make sure there is a fire extinguisher readily available, and heck, even make sure that there's a water cooler available. I mean, we've had members get dinged for that. So, these are topics that we know that shops who operate in that upper echelon of business need to deal with because they're people who run very small shops, I'm talking like 2 to 5 employees, operate differently than shops that are running, 15 plus, 20 plus employees. There are just different needs and different challenges. And so this event really addresses that. And we organize and orchestrate everything. I mean, it is coordinated down to you are having one-on-one meetings with the people that you're going to buy from. You don't set up with a meeting with an embroidery company if you're not going to buy an embroidery machine, right? And so it's very curated, very specific. It's in its 3rd year this year, so still pretty new, but already pretty popular. We had a wait list last year. We already have a small wait list this year. We are still taking applications, by the way. So if anybody wants to apply to attend, still time to do that.
Well, I absolutely love this, John. And I want to get your feedback. And so another big takeaway for me with this conversation, Cassie, is like you, not only are you guys unapologetic with educating, you're doing a phenomenal job building community. Can you just share a little bit, like, and like you can just feel your passion coming through the screen. Like, how does that instill into like your culture, you as a person, like just this fierce community builder? Where'd this come from?
I I don't know. I've always, so everybody says don't mix personal and business. I actually do mix personal and business. So for me, the apparelist is very much a part of my identity and my fiber. If I don't succeed connecting people to those they need to be connected to, if I don't help at least one person who's reading our newsletter or who's attending this event, then I take that personally. Like I take that as like a personal failure because not only is it my job, but listen, I just want to help people. I mean, there are so many good people in the printing industry in particular, and so many of them have become my friends over the years. And so now it's not, these are professional relationships that have often turned personal. So if I have a personal friend who's in the industry call me and be like, I need help with this, I'm going to treat that like I would a friendship. Because I've just gotten to know these people on a personal level. I know often their kids, I know who their kids are, I know how many they have. I know like, what they like to do for their hobbies and their free time. And I look at it as a relationship. And I don't know why I do that. Maybe I'm competitive. I don't know.
It's in your DNA. You can't help it. So, John, I'm dying to hear your feedback. I know, like, I've been on site multiple times. I've seen the rock machine is just we call it the Ferrari. So, John, your thoughts on this wonderful event, what Cassie's doing here?
Yeah, I think it's great. I mean, we were just both at an event in Phoenix that was smaller. I really like the network aspect of it. I mean, Printing United, like we talked about previously, it's a great event, but each event I feel it's like unique and depending on what you're looking to get out of it. Like the Printing United is like exposure. It's like you don't know what you don't know, and you just get to see all this stuff. But there's so much like we try and travel at each show with an agenda of what we want to accomplish because it's so easy to get sidetracked, right? But so often at these bigger shows, um, you have a plan until you get punched in the mouth, right? And it's like you run into someone, and next thing you know, 3 hours go by, and the show's over, and you're out, and you're doing this and doing that, and it's good to have the agenda, but you get sidetracked easily, and then the networking kind of goes away, and you're just there, kind of looking at product, talking with your team, that type of stuff. But then the event like we just went to in Phoenix, the Print on Demand event, your conference out in Nashville, with a smaller audience and with very focused and targeted goals, you're able to get a lot done. Because let's face it, like a lot of the small business owners and operators and critical people in the organization taking 4 or 5 days, 3 days, whatever it is outside of the week on top of family obligations and stuff, it's a commitment. And it just seems like coming out of COVID, there's something going on literally like every month, maybe 2 or 3 times a month. And it's like you got FOMO. I mean, I get serious FOMO all the time. So it's like hard to pick where do we go and what do we want to get done and who's going to be there and who do we want to talk to and who do we want to and who do we want to network with. So I feel like you guys have done a really good job of communicating what the goal is because, like you said, you want to qualify people that are there because no one wants to waste time. Everyone's time is extremely valuable. Those buyers are expecting to sell and you're expecting to go and talk to people that are serious about selling you something. You want to know, hey, is it in stock? What's the lead time? What can we spend? What's the timing? Because a lot of the big purchases that were expected to be made coming out of COVID, all this inventory flooded all this, manufacturing, the vendors, the distributors, and then what happened and the market didn't do so well and people didn't have interest rates went through the roof. So there's a lot of, I would say, friction between the buyers and sellers right now and no one wants to waste time. So it's a really good event. I think it's really really focused, but bottom line, I like where these type of events are going where it's more specific to both parties needs. And what we say the best part of a deal is when all parties, two, three, four, win, and it's a really good opportunity to get in front of people that are have mutual interests and needs. So I think again, great job.
I appreciate that. And I also want to commend you because you took the time to attend the Print on Demand conference,
Mhm.
knowing that it was going to benefit your business. You
Sure.
you you were just like, hey, I understand that this is an investment of time and money, and those things are worth it.
Yeah, it is. It is. And bringing other people from your team too is really important, I feel like, because I can come back and then spew everything I learned, but it's one thing to hear it from me, which they hear a lot from me already, but to hear it, you know, themselves and experience the, activity of getting outside the building and getting on a plane and flying somewhere, and then being able to come back and tell that to their team and see what they heard. It's different coming from me than it is from their direct team lead. So yeah, it's important.
All right, this is phenomenal. I know, Cassie, we could keep you here all day. I promise we'd be done by like just 3 or 4 hours, right? So
Yeah.
we'll start winding down. But I was kind of scanning those topics that you have for your podcast, and I saw a couple kind of related around culture. And I feel like, and you mentioned, a couple of things where I'm like, you're really committed to culture. John, you talk about like that brand promise is, so embedded into like when you're in the apparel industry. When you hear the word brand or the phrase brand promise, Cassie, what's that mean to you? Or just like, again, like from a paralist, like being this wonderful educator, what are your thoughts? Like, what brand promise are you trying to exude at a paralist, and what message are you trying to convey to your clients or your readers and everybody that you're reaching?
Man, what a question to come at toward the end. But no, I love this question. And also really funny because I'm used to being the one to like zing questions at people. So when I think of brand promise, I re I latch onto the word promise because it's easy to say something and it's hard to take action on that thing. So many people say they're going to do something, say, "Oh yeah, I could get to that," or "Yeah, I could do this," or "Yeah, I could help with that." Are are they? Like to me, actions are where it's at. Like I am a person of action so much so to the point that sometimes it's almost detrimental. Like I've been described as maybe a little aggressive. It is what it is. It's fine. I've accepted it. It's who I am. So when when I say from the apparelist that we are going to connect to the decorated apparel community, I mean it. And that means I'm going to connect you to the podcast episode that I think you should listen to. It means I'm going to connect you to people like John who can help you fulfill an order that maybe you can't. It means I'm going to help you find the event that you should attend, even if it's not ours. I can't tell you how many people I've sent to various events. Like I always tell people, like, you should attend ISS. You should attend Print on Demand Conference. You should attend Shirt Lab. You should attend Print Hustlers. Because here's why. Because you're going to benefit by A, B, and C. And so that to me is like, make the promise and then keep it.
Absolutely love it. Keep that promise and just all right. This is phenomenal. Thank you for putting up with my little. I threw a little curveball at you. So as we start winding down, what you've got a wonderful event, your podcast. What else are you super excited about in the industry moving forward?
Oh, I don't know if you guys can tell, I'm kind of an excitable person. I get really excited real easily about a lot of stuff. So right now, definitely excited about the Apparel Decoration Summit. That's kind of, taking a lot of the focus. I am excited for Printing United Expo simply because we're going to have the Apparel Zone again this year. And so the Apparel Zone is a place that if you have not previously been exposed to apparel decorating, it's like a beginner level. So kind of on the flip side of the summit, this is more for beginner level people who maybe haven't done it or considered it. They can learn the basics, kind of get exposure to the equipment, get some hands-on training. So I get really excited about that. And frankly, I'm just excited that I can connect with people like y'all. I mean, the fact that I get to attend all of these events and meet people like John and now Kurt, and like that is so cool because the more people I meet, the more I understand this industry, the more we can support. So I'm just excited for more events and more in-person opportunities and seeing what those yield.
Absolutely phenomenal. Just a little ounce of enthusiasm that you have there, Cassie, and it is completely contagious for the industry. John, we'll start winding down. I have like maybe one or two more sneaky questions. What are your thoughts and takeaways so far?
No, I thought, we talk about the brand promise, and I feel like that doesn't tell the whole story because a promise doesn't totally elicit consistency, right? You might do something once, right? And then you fulfilled your promise. But consistency over time creates momentum. And delivering on that promise over and over again is actually what makes your brand, you know? So, because the brand speaks louder than words, speaks, you know, it is what you are at the end of the day. You're only as good as your last throw or whatever cliche you want to insert here. But consistently doing that is really important. And I feel like Apparelist, Kurt, you as well, everything that, you know, people that you get a good gut feeling on, you know that that person can be trusted on because they're going to do what they say and say what they do.
Yeah, the Apparelist. I just love the name. Just like it's like an Oscar award-winning movie, right? The Apparelist. So, Cassie, let's go here. So, just love the podcast. Love how you're helping. It's not like just the industry. It's like you're giving business advice. You're trying to protect people's businesses with cyber. You're trying to protect them with OSHA advice. You're trying to help them with, best practices. It could be accounting, so on and so forth. Isn't that a gift and a blessing when you get to like interview all these people and like you get to be coached and counseled, right?
Yeah.
Isn't that
I
awesome?
love what John just said. I'm like, dang, that's so good. I'm gonna
It
take
is so good. Yeah, I tell you, you got is like I'm why do that's why I hang out with them. I never want to be the smartest guy in the room. I just want to hang out with smart people. I want to be the smart guy that hangs out with smart people. So, Cassie, what's the all this business advice that you've had? And I'll tell you, at the beginning of the program, you're like, oh gee, I'm gonna, 2012, I started being a journalist, but I dwarf, I shouldn't use that word. I go way, way, way back past 2012. But business advice. You're hearing all sorts of wonderful business advice. And I'll tell you, for my perspective, your early stage of your career, you are absolutely crushing it. You've like far exceeded my expectation. Just absolutely love this go-giving attitude that you have of just fiercely helping entrepreneurs. What's the best business advice that you would love to pass along to anybody listening today? So our entrepreneur friends out there, what's the best business advice that you have for them?
Oh man, how do I even stand up to what John already offered with the consistency and excellence and consistency? Okay, so if I had to choose something else other than that, my favorite thing that I like to tell people is it's too easy to be complacent. And I am guilty of this too. We get in our comfort zones, like you have your daily tasks that you do, your routine, blah, blah, blah. You're not necessarily failing. You're not experiencing bad things. Business is humming along. It's great. That to me is okay. Now's the perfect time to not be complacent. Now is the perfect time to go aggressively pursue something. Find something new that excites you and gets you out of your comfort zone. And even if it doesn't pan out, I mean, just don't be complacent. There's nothing more dangerous to me than that.
All right, bravo, Cassie. Bravo. I'm giving you a standing ovation right now. The word complacent, being content is just like it's not good, right? Nails on a chalkboard. So that is just absolutely brilliant advice. Cassie, I'm reading a book right now, and the whole time as you were talking, I'm like, I feel like have you heard of the book called Unreasonable Hospitality? Unreasonable Hospitality. Man, I couldn't encourage you enough to read that book. And I feel like you've partially written that book. We can talk about it offline, but it's anyway, it's a great New York Times bestseller, great book. And so I think, do you have a book in you? Like being a journalist, do you have a book in you somewhere? She's
I I would love nothing more than to write children's books, based on the absolute insane things that my children put me through.
okay.
I'm sure John can attest. I just learned that you have two small kids as well. So yes, that would be fun. Maybe someday.
Maybe someday. So, all right, as we wind down, we can find you on LinkedIn. Where else? We can find you at Apparelist on your website. Anywhere else that we can find you hanging out?
Yeah, I mean, the best way to find me is just email me directly. cgreen@napco.com. Please email me. I love having conversations if you can't tell. Love having like calls and meetings and things like that. That's the best place to find me. I mean, I exist on Instagram, but it's solely under the Apparelist name. And LinkedIn is my primary place. So that's actually also a really good place to connect with me directly as well, because I'm pretty responsive on LinkedIn.
Awesome. All right, John, as we close out, parting thoughts, words of wisdom that you want to share?
No, it's great. I mean, no growth in a comfort zone. If you're sitting on a treadmill at 3 with no incline for the rest of your life, you're never going to get in shape. So you got to get on. You got to be comfortable getting uncomfortable, and that's great advice. Because at any stage of where you're at, like you always can plateau and you can sit there, but if you're not growing, you're dying. And that's really good advice because it's easy. It's easy to sit and be mediocre, but there's no fun in that.
Just go, yeah, just man, just a whirlwind of enthusiasms here. So, Cassie, we're gonna close out. Hang out with us for 1 minute. I want to thank you, John. How about a big round of
Oh,
applause?
it's amazing.
Just
Short
absolutely
notice. Yeah.
smashing a grand slam. Wasn't even a home run. It was like, bases were loaded, and she just destroyed a grand slam. So, Cassie Green, we appreciate you. We applaud you. We commend you. We thank you. We salute you. We wish you just continued monster success at Perilous. Best success at the show coming up in June. And again, guys, connect with Cassie on LinkedIn, Instagram. Go to her website. Go to the event, and she just hang out with her. You're gonna feel a little bit smarter and just more productive, proactive, all the above. Just hanging out with her. So, all right, we'll close out today, John. Dude, I don't know how you do this, man. Like I just every week, like you just, I don't know how you do it. So thank you. Appreciate it. All right.
Thanks, Kurt. Thanks, Cassie.
Thank you guys.